Hello ladies and gentlemen, we're back again. This is part 2 on how to solve a system of equations using substitution. We're going to continue on to what we did on part 1. We're going to get past that first step of solving a system in more complex problems. The idea is still the same. We're still trying to figure out the solution to this system. We're trying to figure out where the two lines intersect. So we're still looking for a point, an x and a y coordinate. That doesn't change. Right? All we're going to do now is extend on to what we did. So, first thing is, if you haven't already, get out something to write with, get out your notes. Alright, you're going to start with each problem, you're going to write down each step. Alright, and then again, if you need to look back, rewind, look to see what we did. If you still have questions, please ask the next day. So, let's start with first problem. 12x plus 3y is equal to 12. And then we got y is equal to negative 3x minus 1. As we look at this problem, the idea of this is, again, as we did with the first step on part 1, find a variable that's been solved for. In this case, y. Y is equal to a certain amount. That amount is this negative 3x minus 1. The reason why we're doing this is, again, the same thing we talked about in part 1. You can't solve an equation with two different types of variables in it. Knowing that, we need to manipulate these two in this system into one equation that has one type of variable in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this amount of y, which is negative 3x minus 1, and substitute it into the other equation for y. So as we look, we have a 12x, then a plus 3 times whatever y is. Well, we said y is negative 3x minus 1. That's equal to 12. What that means is that this amount right here, that's y. Alright? That's what y is. So that's where the 3y comes from. The nice thing about this problem is you've actually solved problems like this before. It's just a simple distribution. Alright? So when we look at this, you'll start off with, we're going to simplify that set of parentheses. 12x has nothing to do with it, so we're just going to rewrite it. From here, we're going to take this 3 and multiply it by each term inside that set of parentheses. So 3 times negative 3x is going to give you negative 9x. 3 times the second term, 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. And that's all going to be equal to 12. Alright? From there, it's just regular equation. Combine like terms. 12x minus 9x is 3x. Minus 3 is equal to 12. Two-step equation. We're going to add 3 to both sides. 3 and a negative 3 is 0. What's left is a 3x. That's equal to, I'm sorry, not 12, but 15. Divide both sides by 3. So now, we know that x is equal to 5. So you now have the x coordinate of the point that you want. Once we have that, we're going to go back and we're going to solve for the y coordinate. This part doesn't change from what we talked about in part 1. Once you have the x coordinate, we can now, instead of writing an x, we can now put in a number 5. So we're going to take that, substitute it into either equation. It does not matter. I would choose the first one, or the second one now. To me, that one's a little easier. Alright, y is equal to negative 3 times x, which is a 5, minus 1. Well, negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Negative 15 minus 1 is negative 16. So, if you were to graph these two lines, they would intersect at the point 5, negative 16. Alright, next one then. This is one that confuses people on occasion. We'll kind of go through this one. When we look at this, you're looking for an equation that has a variable that's been solved for. The variable's by itself. And the idea is that this x is by itself. So the value of that x is negative 2y plus 16. You want to take that value and substitute it into the other equation, 4x. Well, I want to make sure that you write this one correctly. We've got a 3y. Then it says the opposite, or minus, and we're going to put this in parentheses. Negative 2y plus 16. These parentheses are very important. And that's all equal to 4. As we talked about before, this all represents x. Okay? Now, because of this negative sign right here, this makes things a little more difficult. But what that negative sign means is this means the opposite of everything that's inside this set of parentheses. Or you can think of it as a -1. So it's like multiplying by -1. But as you guys know from the past, anytime you multiply by -1, all you're doing is just switching the sign. So the 3y is outside that, so we leave it alone. So to simplify this set of parentheses, we're just going to take the opposite of -2y, which is a positive 2y. The opposite is 16, which is a -16. We're going to equal that to 4. So from there, we're just going to go through and solve the rest of this one. Combine like terms, 3y and 2y is 5y, minus 16 is equal to 4. Two-step equation, add 16 to both sides. 16 minus 16 is 0, so we get 5y is equal to 20. And at this point, divide both sides by 5. Y is equal to 4. So at this point, you now have the y coordinate. We still don't have a full point though. We got to find the rest of it. And at this point, you can take this 4, substitute it into y, into either equation. But I would choose the second one. I like to choose the one where the variable's been solved for because it's all math after that point. You're just simplifying a math problem. So, -2 times y, which is now 4, plus 16. Well, -2 times 4 is -8, plus 16. -8 plus 16 is 8. You're done. So, if you graph these two lines, they would intersect at the point 8, 4. X is equal to 8, y is equal to 4. Alright, let's take a look at this one. As we look at this one becomes a little more difficult, and you'll see why in a second. As before, look for the variables been solved for. In this case, x has been solved for. X is by itself, and its value is -6y plus 4. We need to take that value of x and substitute in for x in the other equation. So as we look at this, we're going to write 2 times, in this case, -6y plus 4, okay, then plus the rest of it. 3y is equal to 2. As you look, we are now down to one type of variable. We're just down to a y now. We can solve an equation that has just y's in it. So as we go through this, same idea. We're going to simplify the parentheses first. So we use the distributive property. 2 times each term inside this set of parentheses. So 2 times the first term. 2 times -6y is -12y. 2 times 4 is the second term. So 2 times the second term gives you 8. Over here we still have plus 3y is equal to 2. Alright. So again, when we get down to this equation, combine any like terms. 12y and -12y and 3y gives you -9y. Then we have plus 8 is equal to 2. So, two-step equation. Add the opposite of 8 to both sides, which is a -8. That's 0, so you get -9y is equal to -6. Now this is the fun part. At this point, you're going to divide both sides by -9. -9 divided by -9 is just 1. This is the part people don't like. They look at that and they say, oh, I don't know what to do. Think about it. First off, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So that's on. So now you just have 6 over 9. Well, 6 over 9 doesn't divide cleanly, and that's fine. But we're going to leave it as a fraction. So reduce that 6 over 9 to 2/3. So you now have the answer to y. Now the reason why I gave this problem is because if you tried to graph that, it's really hard to see where 2/3 is on the graph. That's why we have this. Right? You wouldn't be able to find the exact answer unless we had substitution. So at this point, once you found y, let's find x. Same idea as before. You're going to take that value of y, you're going to substitute it back into, in this case, I'm going to use the first one. Alright, it doesn't matter which equation, but I think the first one's easier. X is equal to -6 times 2/3 plus 4. Alright. So, at this point, we got to multiply. -6 times 2/3. Now you can do that in your calculator, or you can even do it off to the side. -6 over 1 times 2/3 to make that -6 a fraction. Just multiply across. -6 times 2 is -12. 1 times 3 is 3. -12 divided by 3 is -4. Plus 4 is 0. So if you were to graph these two lines, they would cross on the y-axis at 0, 2/3. Alright. Last one. Let's take a look at this one. You got -3x plus y is equal to -6, and y is equal to 3x minus 6. So, same idea as before. We look for a variable that's been solved for. In this case, y. Y is equal to the amount 3x minus 6. We're going to take that amount and substitute it into the other equation, 4y. So, when we do this, we get -3x plus whatever y is. Well, in this case, 3x minus 6. Then we have equals -6 on the end. Now, this one's pretty simple. -3x and 3x is 0. So, we get to this point. Alright. So, a lot of people get to this point and they freak out. Don't. This is a special case. The nice thing about this special case is you don't have to go any farther. As we look at this special case, and we've talked about this when we solved equations before, you've eliminated the variable. Right? By eliminating the variable, you've now ended up with a statement. -6 is equal to -6. That is a true statement. As long as you end up with a true statement, that means that you have every single possibility. And what that means is these two are the same line, and I'll explain why here in a second. So if you eliminate your variable and you end up with a true statement, the answer is many solutions. So if you were to graph these two lines, you'd end up with this exact same line. Alright, now I'm going to give you another scenario. I'm not going to solve a full problem, but what if you eliminated a variable and you ended up with a false statement, an untrue statement, like 0 is equal to -6. That's not true. If you end up with a statement like that, well, that means no solution. What that means is that the two lines don't intersect. If the two lines don't intersect, that means you have parallel lines. Same slope, different y-intercepts. So you need to make sure you know this. Majority of your answers are going to be like these, one solution. Every once in a while, a substitution problem might fall in where you eliminate a variable. If you eliminate a variable, look to see if you have a true statement or not. Okay? Now, real quick, understand why. If we go up here, we have this equation. Y is equal to 3x minus 6. Alright, it's already in slope-intercept form. But this one is not. If I want to put this one in slope-intercept form, I'm going to add 3x to both sides. Well, 3x and -3x is 0. So I end up with y is equal to 3x minus 6. And as you'll notice, you end up with the exact same equation. So knowing that you have the exact same equation, the answer should be many solutions. Okay? So, I'm showing you guys different ways to look at this. The big key here is understanding, eliminate a variable, true statement, many solutions. Eliminate a variable, untrue statement, false statement, no solutions. Okay? But I want to make sure you guys understand, one solutions are the ones you're going to get the most. Alright. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit. If you still have more questions, feel free to come in class before class starts or during class, and we'll talk about this a little more. Guys, have a good evening. Bye.